Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ignorant Intellectual on Media. Today we're going to do another
Interesting.
father and daughter top 100 films of all time review. We are on our 34th film, which is Interstellar from 2014, directed by Christopher Nolan. It's a space movie, his kind of like ode to 2001: A Space Odyssey. There's a lot of correlations between the two films. Basically, the stars Matthew McConaughey and Matt Damon comes in a little bit later. Anne Hathaway is another of the astronauts, and a bunch of other people. What's his name? Plays the grandfather, the guy from Third Rock from the Sun and Footloose. What was his name? When I remember it, I'll say it. So basically, this is a space film where the Earth is coming to an end for humans, let's put it that way. There's a blight going on, and it's becoming more and more difficult to grow crops. In fact, humanity is down to its last crop after it lost okra, and then corn is the only thing that they could grow. So when you see them eating, all they're eating is corn. They're eating cornbread, corn cereal, corn, everything's corn, right? And basically dust has basically covered the earth almost, and they have these huge sandstorms that occur. So basically what happens is there's, it's Michael Caine, who's a scientist, decides that he needs to save humanity. So he clandestinely continues NASA after NASA was shut down, all right? So, and he has two plans to save humanity. Plan A, which is where they send a whole bunch of people into outer space, where there's this wormhole that opened up near Saturn, and they're going to send a whole bunch of astronauts out there, because 10 years previous they sent 13 ships out to that anomaly to go study planets on the other side of the wormhole, and then send data back, and then they're going to send astronauts to go pick them up and go to the planet that's the most habitable for human beings, right? So they have McConaughey be the main pilot of the ship that goes out. And Plan B is also on the ship. They have like 1,000 or 2,000 embryos, fertilized eggs, where if they find a suitable planet and they can't get back, or they can't get the rest of humanity off of the Earth because they have to solve the problem of gravity, then what they do is they're going to land on a planet, and the astronauts become Adam and Eve, or Eve and Eve, or Adam and Adam, and raise all these embryos into human beings, and then so on and so forth through the generations, right? So it's an extremely good film if you watch it a few times. If you only watch it once, maybe not. But if you watch it 2 or 3 times, you get the gist of everything. And basically, if I was to put it down to basically one theme, I think this is a film about a father who has to decide whether he's going to leave his kids behind in order to save humanity, right? So basically, he has 2 children, and one of them, the daughter, doesn't agree with him leaving, Matthew McConaughey's character, leaving to go help save the planet. What they don't know, or anybody on Earth doesn't know, is that it's the end of the world. They just don't know it, right? So he ends up having to leave his children in the care of their grandfather to go out into space and maybe never return. So basically, there's a whole bunch of intrigue involved in it. There's a Tesseract situation where he ends up, what happens is he has to make a decision. All the planets are not good. Matt Damon is one of the astronauts that went in the Lazarus project, which was the first astronauts that went to check out all the different planets. And he lied when he sent back his signal, and they all went to that planet thinking it's a good planet, but it's not. Matt Damon just did it so that he knew that astronauts would come and save him, because he didn't want to die. But what happens is it's not a good planet, so they end up going to last planet on the list. Well, they try to, anyways. Anne Hathaway ends up going there alone because they didn't have enough fuel to get there, unless she went alone, and they dumped the two shuttle spaceships that were attached to the is it called the Horizon? I think the big ship is called the Horizon. And so they dropped one ship with one of the robots in it, and the second ship had Matthew McConaughey in it, and then they ended up going into this big black hole. And what happens is McConaughey ends up getting into this big, huge tesseract, which is like four-dimensional space or whatever, and he ends up being able to communicate with his daughter back on Earth, which ends up saving the planet. Well, it doesn't save the planet, but it saves humanity in the end. And then at the end of the film, once he does that, he ends up getting shot out of the black hole, and he's in space, and they end up finding him and picking him up before he dies, and he ends up on the space station that's outside of Saturn or whatever, because time is so different that 100 and something years went by the time he ends up being found or whatever. And so he ends up seeing his daughter, who's like twice his age. She's really old. And then he realizes that, this civilization has, grown past him. He has nobody there. So what he decides on his daughter's advice is to get into a ship and go to Anne Hathaway, where she has all those embryos and everything, and go live on that planet with her. So that's what he does. He takes off. So it was an extremely good film. I don't think it's his best film. I prefer the first two Batmans. I like better. I like Memento better. I like most of his films better than this one. But Nolan's films are in such a caliber that it's kind of hard to, argue against any of the films being bad, really. What did you think?
Me and my dad actually watched this movie before because I saw it on TikTok. I saw a quick clip of the video of where he goes to space and he goes back and his daughter's twice his age. So that immediately caught my attention. I told my dad we should watch it. And, coincidentally, it was on the top 100. Well deserved. That scene on Miller's planet is insane because 1 hour is like 27 years?
7 years.
7 years. 7 years. Oh, yeah. 7 years, and then they suddenly get stuck, and now they're like 27 years.
23 years.
23 years. I'm just saying random numbers at this point. But yeah, like missing all those years. If I was his daughter, I would have thought that he'd just be dead because 23 years not hearing anything from my dad like that is. I would have just straight up thought he would dead. Then he gets back to the ship where he's able to like watch all of these clips that he's been left with from his family, and it's sad, because like they're moving on with their lives, but still sending him messages of like how they're growing up, getting married, people dying. It's sad because it's basically like he basically feels like he's already in his grave, and people are just like visiting him, and telling them, oh, what's been up to in my life, because that's basically how they feel as well. They're just talking one-sidedly. And him going to that planet that my dad mentioned, where he was betrayed, Matt Damon, it was brutal because I don't know, what did he do again? He smashed something. Anyways, he's
smashed his face in with it.
Yeah, and he's tried to steal their airship. Then suddenly he gets flown into, I don't know, I forgot the scene where he escapes, but he gets sucked into this black hole with like no survival plan. See, him getting into this black hole is where it starts to get confusing then, because he suddenly appears to like his daughter's bedroom years ago. Years ago when he wasn't even like leaving for NASA yet, and suddenly he realizes that he was the ghost sending him messages and telling him to stay, because he knew that what would happen, because he did experience it. But I don't know, was it really explained how he got there?
Well, basically, what happened is future humanity, who have become fifth dimensional, decided to help humanity in the past by creating a wormhole near Saturn, right? And then right beside one of the planets that they thought was habitable, there's a black hole near, and it makes it uninhabitable, but the black hole, inside the black hole, there's an area that they call the Tesseract, which is basically where time it is basically, you know, you look one way, you look another. You can, it's like the pages of a book, basically, where you can just
Time travel.
like move a page, and then you're at this part of the book. Move a page backwards, and you're at this part of the book. So time doesn't have any meaning. It's all surrounded. Basically, it's all confined to his daughter's room, and different time periods where she's young and then she's older and everything. And so he ends up communicating to her through a watch using Morse code to tell her what the secret to saving humanity was, and how to break the gravity barrier. Basically, the only way to communicate through time is through gravity, is what the argument in the film is. So basically, he was sent out in order, and he gives up knowing and raising and being around his kids to save his kids, basically, and to save the rest of humanity, ending up in the black hole and sending messages back to his daughter through time and space. So it's difficult to try to think in more than 3 dimensions, but the Tesseract is 4 dimensions where time isn't linear. It doesn't go forward. You can just turn your head and there's a time period, turn your head and there's another time period, right? It doesn't have any, there's no time involved in the time, if you know what I mean. It's really difficult to try to understand. In fact, Nolan and his brother, who wrote the screenplay, ended up having a scientist, you know, explain half the stuff to it, because Christopher Nolan didn't want anything that was fantastic. He wanted things that were kind of grounded in science, and even if it's theory, even if it's theoretical, but basically grounded in science, right? Especially in Einstein's, you know, theory of relativity and everything, right? So yeah, it was quite interesting, but it's kind of like a mind-blowing kind of film, and basically it's very, very depressing if you're a parent. If you're a parent, like when I watched, the first time I ever watched this film, I wasn't a parent at the time, so, was I? No, I don't think I was. No, it was 2014, so it was 9 years ago, so maybe I was just becoming a parent. Were you here by that time? Anyways,
No.
So basically, it's different if you're a parent and you have a kid, because you know how difficult it would be to leave your kids, knowing that once you go out in time, you may return and they're like adults, or you may return and they're like old, like what happened, right? It's very difficult to know that you're probably not going to see your kids again if you leave, right? It's kind of easier if you don't have any. Then, you know, it's like an adventure, but when you have kids, it's like you're leaving them behind kind of thing. It's heart-wrenching, basically.
Yeah, the ending of the movie was really sad because even I teared up, and I don't really like sad movies. But yeah, like seeing him watch his daughter die because she's like 9 years old, and he's basically wasn't there throughout her life.
Yeah, that where he was holding her hand and looking at her, and she said, "I knew you were going to return because you promised."
It was
But I
sad.
took my whole life, and she says, "I have my family here." Basically, he's not really part of her family, so she tells her to tells him to leave because it's not good for a parent to see their children die or whatever, right? So he left to go find Anne Hathaway or whatever on the planet. So,
Yeah.
but overall, really, really good film. All of them, these films. You know, you have those elite directors, right? Like Spielberg in the 80s and the 90s, and Tarantino, Nolan, you know, Hitchcock. These guys, upper level. You have some good directors that, you know, like Ron Howard or what's his name, Meathead from what is his name? Man, such bad name. He played Meathead on All in the Family. He ended up going from being an actor to being a director. He directed a lot of good films. Him and Ron Howard. Anyways, I'll put his name here. You know, these guys are good directors, but then you get the elite, really great directors, and Nolan is one of those guys. So, Interstellar is really good. So let's see what's underneath. So, number 34, Interstellar. What's underneath? Is it a spaceship?
Probably a
Is it the
watch.
Yeah, it's the watch.
No, it's
No,
not
it's
the
not.
watch. It's just boring spaceship. That's boring.
So what's up next? Good Will Hunting, another film with Matt Damon and directed by Gus Van Sant, and starring the very comedic, although he's not comedic in this film, Robin Williams. All right. If you enjoyed the video, leave a thumbs up. Think about subscribing, and we'll talk to you in the next video. Have a great day, everybody. Bye for now.
Thanks.